guys, and welcome to a new video on Sonal's life. I am very tired and I have had to forego a lot of the Best of Super Junior first day to do this because on the 10th of May at 3 a.m. or a normal time on the 9th if you are in the US, we had the Resurgence show and there was a lot to unpack, a lot of big title matches, title changes, so let's get going. We started off with some opening matches, and personally, while I've been watching the Strong brand for a while, the Strong Survivor doesn't really fit with me. I don't really understand it and get what it's doing, but we had Alan Breeze versus CJ Tino, and that was CJ got the win. We then had the opening match of Fred Rosser versus Matt Vandergriff. So Matt Vandergriff actually has been going through the it's not LA Dojo anymore, but the New Japan Academy, and this was sort of one of his first big staple matches outside of the Strong Survivor, and he was against the veteran that was Fred Rosser. It was a fine match. It was actually very good. Rosser, he's one of the coaches at the academy, and actually his years of experience can be shown because he won this match. He can show himself to be extremely strong. However, he also makes his competitor look very good. So this was a great way to start. Had the crowds excited, and we got straight into the title matches. Now the next one was kind of interesting. It was for the Strong Openweight Tag Team Championship. So we saw there were champions Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs, West Coast Wrecking Crew. Is that how you do it? They were facing the team of Templario and TJP. Now, if anyone knows why this was a bit weird, if you know everything that's been going on recently with the Empire, I was kind of surprised that obviously TJ's was still teaming with Templario because obviously I assumed he just wasn't in the Empire anymore. In particular, when they came out, Templario had the green and black of the Empire, whereas TJP had this new red gear, which kind of blended into the turnbuckles, but actually on the surface it was very nice ring gear. The match was actually really good. I'm not a fan of West Coast Wrecking Crew. I don't tend to favour their styles and things, but actually when you've paired them with two very fast people, so junior heavyweight Templario and the open weight, but obviously he used to be a junior TJP, you add a lot of more dynamicness into this match. And surprisingly, even though Templario and TJP have not been teaming for that long, compared to West Coast Wrecking Crew, who not only have a history obviously as West Coast Wrecking Crew, but was in Team Filthy and all of this stuff since the Strong brand started, even back in COVID. So this match was very dynamic. There was there was a few missteps, obviously made for the narrative, and actually surprisingly, TJP and Templario got the win. I know I blinked and then the win happened, because bearing in mind this was 3:30 in the morning, and I was really surprised about that because TJP's made no secret that I think he's probably going to be staying within the US shows if he's taking part in New Japan, because obviously he didn't re-sign his contract. I feel like West Coast Wrecking Crew didn't have long enough. I know I've been a critic of them, but less a critic, more that I've just not been very interested. I'm probably wrong, but this is one of the very few tag teams that have held these belts that actually open weight. Because most of the time you have one heavyweight, one junior. Two juniors is mostly predominant. But here you have an open weight and a junior. So it's going to be very exciting. And obviously Templario is amazing. So if we get to see more Templario on these New Japan Strong shows, then it's all good for me. We then had Bullet Club versus Bullet Club for a special tag match. And I say Bullet Club versus Bullet Club because you have our dogs for real, the Bullet Club War Dogs, Gato, Clark Connors, who actually had to do the match and then straight after fly to Japan because he's part of the Best of Super Junior. The fucking Madman Gabe Kidd and David Finlay, the Boss Man, facing, and this had been teased and they did big packages ahead of it, I guess what you could call the old Bullet Club. We saw the Young Bucks. Are they called the Young Bucks still? Nick and Matt Jackson, and the return of the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Why did I have to complain? Actually, I'm really confused here, because maybe that's special word for special guest or something. On the actual results page that I'm looking at, they have all the names, but then they have something written next to Luke and Carl in Japanese. But that was very interesting, because obviously War Dogs are coming off their successful Steel Cage Pound match, which obviously made them keep the name. And actually this was a very interesting match because of how different everyone is. You have so many different styles. For example, Nick and Matt Jackson, they used to be junior heavyweights, then they were heavyweights, but obviously they are still known for their athleticism. Then you have Clark Connors, again, a junior heavyweight, but is known for his strength. Carl and Luke have obviously been teaming for years. And then obviously you have David Finlay and Gabe Kidd. Gabe Kidd can do everything. He can fly high, he can do the ground game. And then Gato. God bless Gato. This match was very fun. There was nothing really on the line here. Maybe more of just like, it was a very nice thing for the LA crowds who are actually really hyped. But yeah, it was a great match. There were some really nice spots with all the members. In the end, unsurprisingly, when you have Gato, who is also one of what we like to call a New Japan electrician, he got pinned by Carl Anderson. The ending was quite funny. So all 4 of the members of the, I guess you could say, the old Bullet Club, they'd been doing like 2 sweets and stuff. They did like a big 2 sweet, hoping to be like, come and join us for the War Dogs. And the War Dogs, like, for a second I thought they were going to do it, but they just turned into 2 sweet themselves instead. So, I mean, I don't think that this is going to be carrying on in any way, but it's New Japan, so who knows? We might end up seeing the Good Brothers again back in New Japan until they decide they don't want to do it, and then they go back to WWE, and then they get sacked or they leave WWE, and it's just like a massive never-ending circle. We then got into a string of just title matches. And actually this proves that this was actually a very strong show. I believe stronger than the Long Beach one, that was the previous one. Because we had the match of the big, beefy, strong men. Because the newly crowned strong champion, Tomohiro Ishii, was facing the big dog, Drilla Maloney, which was why he was not in the previous tag match. Now, we saw this in the New Japan Cup, and Drilla came out on top, and it had us salivating for something more. The way the Stone Pitbull salivates, is that the right word? Salivates? It might not be. For a big chop fest. As expected, this match was great. I mean, I still doubt whether Drilla was, like, ever a junior heavyweight. He, like, comes in the realms of, like, I don't think Shingo was ever a junior heavyweight. But this was great because as well as both guys being very strong, they are very athletic. And, you know, from the very beginning, it was a very strong fest. So, like, Drilla was chopping Ishii, and Ishii just seemed to, like, stand there, like, deadpan. There was nothing. He was, like, taking everything in. And I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of an analogy. But, you know, when, like, those cartoon stuff where they get hit by the opponent, but actually they just take all of that energy and they radiate themselves. Like, that's what Ishii did. Like, it was a great start, and like it continued. It went 13 minutes, and actually this is the perfect amount of time, not just for this like title, I think, but for these guys' style, because Drilla tried to slow it down, but not to the extent that we got bored. But then Ishii would like pick it up, because surprisingly Ishii works in quite a fast-paced environment, just because of how his style works. He likes to get things done very quickly, maybe because like for his size, I guess. Maybe the longer matches don't work. Whereas I think Drilla, and we've seen this, he could go like 30 minutes if he wanted to, even with the added size. The crowds were really into this. There was so much diversity within the match. And I think, obviously, I could see Drilla as like a future heavyweight champion one day. But I would like to, and I know some people say that's like a curse on you. But I'd like to think that he was in that realms of those guys who are known for the Never division. Obviously, this is like the strong version of Never. Guys like Ishii, Goto, Suzuki, the ones who are known for their strong, heavy-hitting style, who can put on good matches with anyone. In the end, Ishii got the win with his brainbuster, and the crowd went wild. I think that at some point, Drilla will get a title, but if you think about it, it was only 4 months ago that I was watching him in the Tokyo Dome in a junior heavyweight match. So the fact he's come on leaps and bounds, like we said, that his transition to heavyweight has been phenomenal, as shown by his run in the New Japan Cup. So he's got so much time, and he's just going to keep getting better and better with the more opponents he faces. And obviously Ishii's next big challenge will be the Tag Team Championships at Dominion. And so, obviously, one strong openweight belt, we went to the Never openweight belt. And we saw a battle of the champion, I think, over 120 days, the most winningest, which I guess is not really saying much because it's the Never title. Konosuke Takeshita facing ELP. They obviously had their match at Genesis. They had their match at Dontaku like a week before for the TV title, and that saw a time limit draw because 15 minutes, which meant that ELP retained. So this was like a second battle. There was no time limit. There was no constrictions of time. Now, from the minute Takeshita came out with Rocky Romero, the King of Sneaky Star, I knew that we needed to watch that man because albeit there is some conflicting ideas with him coming out as part of the Don Callis family, being the man, well, one of the men in charge of New Japan in the US. But it's Rocky Romero. Again, the match was phenomenal. These two they had, I think, one of the best matches of the G1. They have so much chemistry together. And similarly to Ishii and Drilla Maloney, I've said Don there because of Don Callis family, the change in styles, the ability for them to mesh between the strong, hard-hitting style to the more athletic style that they have, was flawless. Like, obviously, ELP, he is another guy who's very much now, I think, in the never open weight. Because he is known for his athleticism. I remember when I was watching him, before he even stepped foot in a New Japan ring, he was like walking on the ropes. He had some great spots. In particular, at one point, he got onto the rope, and after hitting Takeshita over the barricade, he flew outside into the crowd, into like a lady's lap. And there was like a great sense of urgency, but also respect between these two guys. Now, Rocky Romero, for the most of it, stayed quite impartial until the end. Until ELP hit his finisher and was going for the 1, 2, 2 and a. Rocky pulled out the ref. God damn it, Rocky. You know what, if that was the only like interference, I guess, okay, because I knew Takeshita got the win after that, but I think Takeshita was going to win anyway. There is still a lot of grievances, and I saw it on social media from New Japan fans, about New Japan having to bring this AEW story of the Don Callis family into New Japan. If they continue using it in the sense of like, we knew Takeshita was going to win, so it's just added a bit of beef, and that's fine. One appearance of Rocky throughout the match is fine. But I don't want this to be a regular occurrence, just because Takeshita is Takeshita. He's one of the best in the world. The man does not need any interference at all. Especially, like, do you know what I mean, when he's on such a roll. So, yeah, it was a really good match. I feel, are we going to get this again? Maybe at, like, the next G1. There's a while yet, so we can, like, chill out, have a rest, and then we can have, like, a big buffer match come then, because I think, aside from, obviously, the last match, they're now one apiece for title matches, and I'd love that to be the crowning glory for ELP. We then got up to the two main titles, so it was going to be a co-main event, and actually to start with, I didn't know what order it was going to be, but we started with the IWGP Heavyweight Championship match. Hiroki Goto, the champ, the Goto Revolution, facing Zack Sabre Jr., who made a challenge at Don Taku, who was then followed by Shingo, so then Shingo was like, you know what, you have the first pick and then I'll go. This match will be very divisive, because, hell, at the start it was beautiful. Goto and Zack are veterans. They have been the until like the last few years, the unsung heroes of the company, where they're always there to have really good matches. You can throw them in with anyone, okay, even maybe House of Torture, and they can put on a good bout. This was phenomenal. Goto's strength, his speed and size, but then Zack was putting it to the ground. What I love is they always mentioned, I can't remember if it's 3 seconds or 5 seconds, but Zack has this thing that when he's in a submission, he will only hold it for 5 seconds or something like that, because he realizes that if it's not going to get you done in that amount of time, it's not going to work. And you know what I love? So when he's got someone in a hold, I love like counting to see. And you know what? 99% of the time it does work. And the other 1%, I probably forget to do it. They work so perfectly in tandem. They've had so many good matches in the past, whether it's like singles, tag, obviously Dangerous Tekkers and Bishamon, New Japan Cups, G1s. And it feels like they are intertwined their careers. There was a beautiful mix of styles, speed, and things. And actually, why I say it was controversial was because there was Taito reffing. And at one point, they were doing a lot of reversals. This is something Zack's known for, where he will take it and he will go into like the British roll, which I like to call the British vegan sausage roll for Zack. And then Goto will roll over and count it. And actually, at one point, it seemed like Zack had Goto's shoulders pinned. And then suddenly, Taito was counting 3. And shockingly, this meant that actually Zack didn't win, because Taito had counted it as a double pin, which is when both men's shoulders are on the mat for 3. Now, this did not spark a very good reaction in the crowd. They were booing, they were having a go at Taito, they were booing Goto, because obviously Zack decided to have a wrestling match with Taito after this match. Obviously frustrated, because this is that thing Zack doesn't like. Winning by pinfall, winning by time limit, and then a double pin. Or anything where he doesn't win outright. And poor Goto seemed confused. Obviously, I assume it was, like, meant to happen. But here's why I'm, like, kind of happy about it. one is kind of biased because I'm the biggest Hiroki Goto and Zack Sabre Jr. fan. So here neither of them had to lose. I got an amazing match. 2, it didn't make either men look bad. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the defense that Goto wanted. It's not going to be the defeat Zack wanted. But it means that we can come back to this later on. With Dominion coming up in a few months, and that is meant to be Shingo versus Hiroki Goto, will this result affect it? Will we have a triple threat? This doesn't happen often, but it could do. Will this mean that if Goto retains, Zack gets another shot? They've allowed endless possibilities with this result, and I guess it's a cop-out a bit, but at the stage that Zack is in, a loss would have been detrimental, and there's no way they were ending the Goto Revolution, so it was a win-win for everyone. And talking about triple threats, we then had the main event, which was for the Strong Women's Championship. I think this is one of the very few times it's been the main event, and it is the champion Mercedes Moné facing Azumi and Mina Shirakawa. I mean, at this point I was ready to go to sleep, but my 2 girls came on, and as soon as Mina Shirakawa's music hit, it was 5:30 a.m. and I was dancing along in bed. I was like, this is great. And this match, I was really excited for it to be at the top of the card because it gets time. We have always complained that obviously you don't get many women's matches in it. And this match was great. I'm going to be honest here, and this is not like a hate to Mercedes, but actually the stars of this show was Azumi and Mercedes. I mentioned this on a podcast with True Heel Heat, so SP3 News. Make sure you subscribe to them if you subscribe to me. If you subscribe to them, make sure you subscribe to me. Azumi and Mina are from Stardom, and Stardom are some of the fastest and most athletic wrestlers in the world. I always say that they can outspeed our junior heavyweights in New Japan. And they were the stars. I think I remember this from when I was watching WWE as well. Mercedes heavily relies on the Meteora, and to be fair, I got a bit sick of the Meteora. But I think she did allow the 2 to shine, and I think maybe that was the point. Because in the end, Mercedes didn't get pinned, but Azumi pinned Mina. Which means that at the age of 22, 23, as one of the most seasoned veterans, Azumi is a new champion. And this was great because throughout the match, I was worried that she was going to lose because she was constantly getting pushed to the side. And it almost seemed like the focus was on Mina and Mercedes, obviously the 2 AEW signings. But Azumi was very athletic. At one point, there was moments where, because I'm not really a fan of triple threat, but it can work in some instances, where they made most of having 3 people in the ring. So where it was Mina doing a figure 4 on both Azumi and Mercedes, or where Azumi was on the top rope and Mercedes and Mina were going to do a double team on her, but actually she used it against them, had them sort of flopping down from the ring and did a double knees. And it was very good. And I'm going to check how long it went for because I love this sort of stuff. I love stats. It went 17 minutes, which might be one of the longest women's matches that they've had in the US shows. But it meant that you could have the 3 mixing up all 3 of them together. Azumi got the win. She had a very cute speech at the end saying it's Azumi time, and everyone seemed very happy. And actually, this was a very strong show. I think I preferred it to the last show, which I said was neither bad nor good. But this was a solid set of matches from start to end, interesting. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, so we've done that. We are now firmly into Best of Super Junior season. So I posted a preview for that, to make sure to watch it. And the next big show we'll have with some of these big stars will be Dominion, coming, I believe, in June. It seems like just yesterday I was in Japan, and how fast the time has flown. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the card, on the results, whether it was the straight out results or the controversial heavyweight match. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on social media at wrestling_chat. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, and I will see you soon. Bye. Bye.